and happy Thursday. Welcome to your weekly dose of higher wisdom. Today we are diving deep into cannabis and sex as gateways to embodiment. And I'm excited to share how these two taboo topics, our gateways to embodiment, are both powerful medicines, and the similarities between recreational cannabis use and unconscious sex, and sacred ceremonial cannabis use and sacred sexuality. So, for those of you who are new and don't know me, I'm just checking the audio to make sure we don't have any audio issues this week. Let me just double check on Instagram. Can anyone hear me? If you can't hear me at all throughout the ceremony, throughout the book reading, please comment, let me know. I'll keep this open so I can pay attention. So for those of you who are new, I am Dr. Shelley, the cannabis chiropractor, and my journey led me to being here. So every stepping stone was a vital part of my journey, from being a chiropractor, from feeling burned out, seeing the same patients return with the same pain and symptoms when I knew more was possible for them. As a sex and relationship coach, seeing my sisters return with the same womb symptoms and womb pain and traumas and triggers in their relationship. And then in my own healing journey, seeing the same triggers show up, even though I'm like, I thought I healed that. Haven't we been here already? Like, why is this showing up again? And that burnout called forth plant medicine into my life. And Bufo, being my first medicine, rebirthed me and then rebirthed my relationship with cannabis, which is where this book that I'm going to be sharing passages from was birthed from my relationship with cannabis in sacred ceremonial use. And the moment she said, Shelley, I know you're looking for more, but you have to honor me, revere me as sacred, and I will guide you to the more that you're looking for. I said, sign me up, because I've already done everything, tried everything, and nothing was working. So, yes, sign me up if that means I give up my Friday evening. And that was really the only time my husband and I consumed cannabis. Friday evening, after a long week in my chiropractic practice, instead of a glass of wine, we'll imbibe cannabis, sit in our backyard, look at the jungle, enjoy good music and deep conversations. And even that, she was like, ceremonial use with an intention to check in, not to escape or check out at the end of your long week. And because I was so burnt out and frustrated, I said, okay, yes, I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to try to reason or justify or whatever. I will honor you and revere you as sacred, because when I revere you as sacred, that means I revere me as sacred. So it was a no-brainer to honor her and to listen to her and to trust her. And I'm so grateful I did, because this amazing book, which is a conglomeration of my self-healing journey, all the traumas and wounds up until this point that I was healing, that I shared, as well as how to heal yourself, because you'll hear me say it over and over again. You are your own healer. You are your own shaman. You are your own guru. You don't need anyone or anything external, not even cannabis. However, as you are coming home to your inner guru, your inner shaman, your inner healer, cannabis imbibed in sacred ceremony will guide you along the way to your higher self. And that leads me into where we are going to begin in today's dose of higher wisdom on the difference between recreational and sacred ceremonial use of cannabis, as well as unconscious, or let's call it recreational sex, and sacred ceremonial sex. So many people claim that the best sex they've ever had is while high on cannabis. Let's go down this rabbit hole, shall we? Because cannabis is combined with sex more often than alcohol or drugs, and the underlying reason is embodiment. Cannabis is one of the oldest known aphrodisiacs in the world, with nearly mythical libido boosting powers. Thousands of years ago, she was imbibed ritualistically in ancient sacred sexuality ceremonies, which look nothing like what sacred sexuality looks like today in mainstream society. It's pretty self explanatory why cannabis is known to enhance your libido, because she's an embodiment of Shakti, of your life force, your feminine essence, your inner healer. And Shakti is sexual by nature, hence how life force, sexual energy, Shakti, inner healer, ki, chi, all of these are interchangeable terms referring to the same thing, your vital life force energy, the energy that keeps you alive and the energy that creates everything in your reality. So, cannabis wakes up your sexual energy. And wasting it in an orgasm or ejaculation is also wasting her divine guidance and knowledge, which is your divine guidance and knowledge of your higher self that you can meet and embody when you retain Shakti, when you retain your life force in sex by not ejaculating, by not giving in to those lower consciousness orgasms where you are expelling your life force or Shakti for those 7 seconds of superficial pleasure, or as I call it, false pleasure. And before continuing, allow me to just share this trigger disclaimer. There may be things that I say, passages that I read from my book that will trigger you, that will bring up a fight, flight, freeze response where you either want to run away, flight, or you want to fight and reason and defend and justify. And both of these, or you just go into freeze, full on shock. Especially talking about these taboo topics, especially talking about recreational use, because that judgment wound may get poked. And I am not here to judge you, sister or brother. We all have to begin and look at our relationship with cannabis, with ourself, and with our sexuality. Not from a place of judgment or shame for not doing it the right way, as there's no right way. There is a sacred way, though, and there is a not so sacred way. And if you judge yourself wherever you're at along that whatever I want to call it, between not so sacred and sacred, it's a journey. If you judge yourself, then that judgment wound is going to get triggered. And it will feel like me and my words are judging you, but I'm not, because I've been there, done that. Hence, how and why I'm here, birth this book and sharing it with you. We all have to make this journey from not so sacred to sacred. So now, with that being said, allow me to return. So, cannabis, if you've experienced cannabis, decreasing your libido or contributing to sexual dysfunction of any type at all, it has less to do with cannabis. She's not to blame, and more to do with what she is revealing to you, which is an underlying issue that needs to be addressed in order to help you remember the sacredness of your sexuality. Consider it her way of preventing you from expelling your Shakti and her divine guidance. So, besides cannabis waking up your Shakti, your life force, your sexual energy, how does she really enhance your libido? Well, let's find out. First, she is a vasodilator, meaning that she contributes to the opening of your blood vessels for more blood to be able to flow. She increases acetylcholine, the chief neurotransmitter of your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest system, which is the state within which we should be enjoying sex, right? That rest and digest. But how can we when we are stuck in that fight, flight, freeze state? We can't fully relax, which leads to a deactivation of your sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight response system, as well as a contraction of your smooth muscles, increased bodily secretions such as lubrication, and a decreased heart rate. Put bluntly, pun intended, she contributes to your feelings of relaxation during sex. She stimulates your vagus nerve, which is the primary nerve that activates your parasympathetic nervous system, allowing you to feel relaxed and to feel the pleasure of Shakti, your life force, awakening within you. She increases the release of dopamine, which lowers your inhibitions, making you more sexually explorative and less worried about your sexual performance, body image, size, how you smell, or what your partner is thinking of you. She awakens your feeling presence in your skin, your temple body's largest sensory organ, through her direct effect on the cannabinoid receptors in your skin and in the part of your brain that receives input for tactile sensations. She awakens nerve pathways of pleasure, which lessens pain. She increases awareness in your womb, or for the men, your hara, thanks to the cannabinoid receptors present in your womb or your hara, which is what I call your center of your life force. It's like your reservoir of your life force, your Shakti. And she heightens all of your senses, and more senses equate to what? More pleasure. And sex is a gateway to embodiment. Think about it. It's a potent medicine that forces you to feel from the very moment that you have a sexual thought cross your mind, all the way through arousal to the actual act of sex. So that mere sexual thought already arouses you and gets you to feel something in your body, hence how sex is a gateway to embodiment. But let's just not stop at the 7 seconds of superficial pleasure, because then that's not embodiment. That's furthering your disembodiment by expelling your life force, expelling your Shakti. So, the embodiment that you feel during sex, the way society does sex, is a very limited version of embodiment. The sexual act has fallen from its rightful position of sacredness and become polluted with sexual programming, religious dogma, and shame. When our wombs are when our wombs are cauldrons, which they are creation cauldrons, when they are cauldrons of unprocessed traumas though, and pain, what are we actually feeling in an unconscious sexual experience that has an emphasis on the peak experience of orgasm or ejaculation? That 7 seconds of pleasure, you're chasing it, chasing it, chasing it. What are you really feeling? What are you really feeling when your creation cauldron, your womb or your hara, has unhealed traumas? You know, this analogy, my husband and I, we talk about it all the time as we're downloading and flowing information in our daily practice, that with unhealed traumas stored in the womb, lining the womb cauldron, your creation cauldron from which you give birth to your reality from, not just babies, not just children, you give birth to everything in your reality from your womb, from your hara. And when your creation cauldron has those unhealed traumas, those stuck energies are like polluting your cauldron. The best analogy I have for you is your cauldron contains, it hasn't been washed, it hasn't been cleaned, it contains every meal that you and all of your ancestors have prepared in that cauldron. So just going back 500 years, 13 generations of ancestors, that's 16,382 ancestors. How many meals did they prepare in their womb or hara cauldron? That they never cleaned out those undigested thoughts, feelings, and emotions and experiences. That's like the grime on the edge of the pot that didn't get cleaned. it got stuck like crust. So all of their unhealed traumas are the dust and the armoring in your womb. And those frequencies are what give rise to your reality. So if you have unwanted, undesired experiences in your reality, we have to come home to our womb and go, okay, so what is stored in my womb that gave birth to that reality? So now with that womb cauldron that is armored, dusty, clogged up with all those unhealed traumas, how can you truly feel what your womb or your hara is supposed to feel in an act of sex with all of that armor? So the analogy my husband and I have is like the wombs are like these porcupines, and when we come together and engage in an unconscious act of sex, it's traumas poking traumas. And believe it or not, we actually did an experiment a couple of years ago. After every sexual encounter we had, which we were engaging in a conscious sex practice at that point, but after every experience we engaged in, within 24 hours, like clockwork, every time, a trigger would show up. It was like our wombs were communicating of how can we become less porcupined so that when we come together, we're not poking one another. We're coming together and we're feeling and we're healing and we're uniting two as one. So, throughout today's dose of higher wisdom, at any point that you hydrate, here is a ritual for you to honor and revere you as sacred, to honor and revere your body as your temple that houses your higher self. So you can still continue listening to me as you perform the ritual, but any point that you put water, tea, whatever you're hydrating with in your mouth, hold it in your mouth. Dance your tongue, create waves in the liquid, restructure its molecular structure into the most beautiful sacred geometry that looks like and is aligned with your I am frequency that you hum into it, vibrating your sound and sending that frequency, that higher frequency into the liquid. So that when you swallow it, you can visualize it flowing through your sacred waters, recalibrating them and cleansing them to your higher I am frequency. Mm. Mm. And it's turning these moments of your everyday reality from brushing your teeth to peeing to pooping to drinking to eating to cleaning, whatever it is you're doing, transform it into a ritual. Make it sacred because you are sacred. And while you continue to listen to me, connect to your breath. Nice, long, slow inhales, nice, long, slow exhales. Begin to feel your body. Feel your breath flowing into your body and feel your breath leaving your body ever so slowly. So, when our wombs are cauldrons of these unprocessed traumas and pain, I'll ask this question again. What are we actually feeling in an unconscious sex act? Chasing after carnal, lustful desires for that short lived climax where you expel your Shakti, keeps your energy stuck in and expressed from your lower three chakras. The home of survival fears, shame, guilt, anger, rage, frustration, overthinking, worry, undigested shit, and the misuse and abuse of feminine power. And until you've dropped into your womb or your hara and begun this dark night of the womb pilgrimage, de-armoring all of the stuck vibrational frequencies from these unhealed traumas or suppressed emotions, fear, programs, belief systems, whatever it is, these energies will continue to be felt, exchanged, and absorbed during sex between partners. So pause for a moment and just feel that with a partner, whatever unhealed traumas your partner has lining their womb or hara cauldron, you will be feeling, receiving, exchanging, and absorbing those because your womb and your hara is like a sponge. It absorbs energies. So, if your partner has unprocessed traumas and you are actively and consciously healing your womb, every time you engage in unconscious sex, there is an exchange of energy occurring there. So, your partner's stress, frustration, anger, overwhelm, abandonment wound, fear, whatever it is, you are going to feel that. And this is where, after a sex act, you may have a trigger show up. And it may be something that wound of your partner is connecting with a wound of yours. And it's something that needs to be seen. So while it's required to be aware that there is this exchange occurring during sex, it's not something to be feared. It is something to go into with your eyes open so that you can make conscious choices of, let me feel into this person's energy. Is this someone that I desire to exchange my most sacred energy with? Is this someone that I desire to allow to penetrate my womb or to exchange and pass on from their womb to my hara all of their unhealed traumas? Is this someone that I can heal with? That if a trigger shows up within 24 hours post sex, is this my partner that I'm healing with? Will we be able to discuss the trigger? Or will the trigger be such an explosive brrr in your relationship or fleeing or whatever it is that it just destroys that potential for a relationship or whatever it is? So these are all questions that, as you are becoming aware of your womb being a sponge and sex being a sacred energetic exchange, for you to be aware of, okay, how am I doing sex? Am I doing sex unconsciously, chasing after that peak experience to feel 7 seconds of superficial pleasure? Am I willing to engage in sex with someone that's not my partner and receive all of their unhealed traumas just because I'm seeking connection, because I feel depressed, alone, emotional, whatever the story is? For me, it was chasing power. So, whatever the story is that a sacred choice? Is that how you would honor your higher self? And this shifts you out of that judgment and shame that I mentioned earlier with the trigger disclaimer. And it propels you into this higher space of discerning how you are living your life, the choices you are making, and what you desire to create as your life. Again, don't judge yourself. Just, okay, redefine. It's a detour. It's a detour to my higher self, to the highest version of me, to that which is sacred. It's an exit off the ramp of that which is not so sacred. Unconscious sex and recreational cannabis use, to numb, to escape, to de stress, or to check out, are very much alike. Both are a chasing of something, either the orgasm or ejaculation in sex, or the high checked outness with cannabis. Combine the two together, and now you're having checked out unconscious sex. So, yes, it may be the best sex you've ever had, because if you like the checked out feeling from your cannabis high, because it's better than what you feel in your everyday stressed out reality, then you'll also like the checked out version of sex because it's better than what you feel during sex without cannabis. And let's be honest, most people aren't truly enjoying the current way of doing sex. And if you think you are enjoying the current way of doing sex, I'll invite you to ask yourself this question. How do you know when you don't know what's possible if you've never felt what is truly possible? And just contemplate that on that for a moment. Do you truly know what the highest, most sacred version of sex is, looks like, feels like, tastes like, sounds like, smells like? And if you don't, can you open your tunnel vision to receiving that as a possibility so you can make that detour if that is what you desire to experience in this reality? Okay, so what do I need to do? What actions can I take? What choices do I need to make in order to align myself onto a path that guides me to that which is most sacred? The current way of doing sex, as you're contemplating on whether you like the current way of doing sex or not, it lacks pleasure. And I'm referring to real, higher, multidimensional pleasure, not the sexual pleasure that you currently know. And what if I told you that sacred sexuality, this multidimensional pleasure, does not feel like sexual pleasure at all? If you feel sexual pleasure, it's not your higher pleasure. And that is how you know. It also lacks sensuality. It lacks connection and intimacy, even though, which is so ironic, even though we oftentimes choose to engage in sex for connection and intimacy. But recall one of those sexual moments that was just a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Where's the connection in that? Where's the intimacy? Where's the sensuality? Where's the pleasure? The real pleasure. Not the wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Okay, it just felt like my womb got pounded. And that's supposed to be pleasurable? No, there's no pleasure in that. But you see, when our wombs or our haras are armored, we have to engage in literally that wham, bam, thank you, ma'am sex just to feel. Calling it great sex, calling it pleasure. It's not. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, and I'm not sorry also because what's on the other side? There's no words. I can't even begin to share with you. But trust me, it is beyond anything that you can ever imagine if you have not experienced it. If you've experienced it, well, you know what I'm talking about. Most importantly, the current way of doing sex lacks sacredness and rituals. When was the last time you engaged in sex and there was an exchange of permission? There were rituals. There was a deep honoring and connection of your partner as a soul. There was an honoring of each other's wombs as sacred temples, as the home of our treasure chest that contains our gold, our holy grail. When was the last time that it was sacred for you? Just feel into that. And why wasn't it? So, what most people enjoy, unfortunately, that causes the way we do sex today is the chase. The chase is what people find pleasurable. It's that seeking, the chasing, the when I get it, then I'm going to be happy. It's that end result. But then what? Are you really satisfied after you've experienced that 7 seconds of superficial pleasure? Or do you feel drained? Do you feel exhausted? Do you just want to roll over and fall asleep? Do you feel like you're missing something? Do you feel fill in the blank? When was the last time you checked in and okay, how do I feel after sex? Was that really worth it? Check in the next time if you haven't checked in a while. So now that you've met the concoction of unconscious sex with recreational cannabis use, let's meet the remaining 5 sex and cannabis concoctions. So the first one, conscious sex and recreational cannabis use. What this looks like, if you keep your awareness in your womb, feeling your womb expanding, retracting, you will feel more Shakti or life force during sex. But if you chase the cannabis high to numb or escape, which is essentially a form of disassociation, which is essentially a coping mechanism for unhealed traumas, then that also means that you are numb to your womb. So if you are using cannabis to check out, to numb, to escape, if you use cannabis to engage in sex from that numb, escaped, checked out state, then you can't feel your womb because you're not checked in. So, how can you feel the full potential of your sexuality when you're checked out? You're not checked in, feeling the hub of your life force, your Shakti, your sexual energy, revving and vibrating and beating rhythmically and coming alive. If you're numb, checked out, or escaping, you can't feel that. So you're missing out on a huge chunk of real pleasure right there. And then the combination of sacred sex and recreational cannabis use is nearly an impossibility because if you've reached a level of sacred sexuality, how could you not reach a level of sacred cannabis use, the divine feminine as sacred? Because in order to reach that level of sacred sexuality, you would also have the awarenesses, the ahas, and the insights that cannabis is a divine feminine plant medicine. And if I am honoring my body in sacred sexuality, then I am honoring cannabis as her full sacredness. So those two just don't go together. Then we've got unconscious sex paired with sacred cannabis use. And in this, cannabis will introduce you to your womb's cauldrons, unprocessed traumas, suppressed emotions, ancestral and collective pain, shame, sexual repression, programming, so on and so on. You may even experience reactivations of sexual abuse or rape from this lifetime, past lifetimes, or your ancestors' lifetimes. So, on your journey, as you are beginning to revere cannabis as sacred, as you engage in unconscious sex still, you are going to feel more of your womb. And because you're on a healing journey, you're going to meet those unhealed traumas that I spoke about. You're going to feel them. And that's where you may have reactivations of these past painful traumatic memories. And this is why it's important to check in with the partner you are engaging in sex in if you are on a healing journey, because when these reactivations of these traumatic memories show up, if your partner is going to freak out, doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know how to hold space for you, that can induce more shame, humiliation, feelings of embarrassment, regret, guilt for ruining the experience. So, if you are working with cannabis in a sacred way, if you are on this dark night of the womb pilgrimage journey of de-armoring your womb, communicate with your partner. Traumas may show up. I may become emotional. This may show up, whatever. Open and honest communication is key to helping you navigate the porcupines of those traumas and wounds that show up and get poked during sex. The next concoction is conscious sex paired with sacred cannabis use. And with this concoction, you will begin to feel the healing power of sex as you remember how to circulate your Shakti, your life force, or your sexual energy through your body instead of expelling her in an orgasm or an ejaculation, something that expels her down and out. So, this combination is you are working with cannabis in sacred ceremony, you're dropping into your body, you're de-armoring your womb or hara, you're feeling and you're healing, and now your sexuality begins to change. This is much more helpful having a partner who is also on a healing journey. If not, like I said before, open and honest communication. Listen, we can engage in sex, however, traumas and wounds, emotions may arise. If that happens, can you just hold space for me? Can you just, whatever I need in that moment, can you just hold that space? Because my womb is processing some traumas. And if you communicate it that way with your partner will, okay, I understand it. Instead of maybe in the moment, the trauma shows up, you go into freeze mode, memory shows up, and you start crying instead of your partner, what's wrong with you, and pulling away. And then you have to explain. This saves you that time so your partner knows, oh, okay, healing is occurring. And then we've got the final concoction, sacred sex and sacred cannabis use. With this concoction, gateways open to previously untapped dimensions of embodiment, healing, and cosmic consciousness or higher consciousness. No sexual desires are present at all, and no penetration nor erection is needed. And this is where I shared with you that sacred sexuality does not look like sex at all, because no erection is needed, no penetration is needed. It is truly a connection at an energetic level where you feel so united with your partner and you feel these waves of energy as you both are waking up your life force, waking up your Shakti, and channeling her through your 72,000 Shakti channels and being aware. For example, my husband and I, we use our sexual experiences for healing. So whatever he's processing, he's in his sacred secretion rebirth currently. So, and this is where we preach all the time. Semen retention and Shakti retention is an absolute must during your sacred secretion rebirth. You cannot expel your Shakti or life force during your sacred secretion, or you will miss out on that month's opportunity to wake up your Kundalini and rebirth yourself from your trauma self to your higher self. And when you get to this state of sacred sexuality, there's a whole nother level where you can actually use sex to heal whatever pain, stuckness, restriction is showing up in your body. And again, there is no sexual pleasure, no erection, no penetration needed whatsoever. I know. Try to imagine that. If you would have told me that maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I would have been like, what? What are you talking about? How's that possible? Because I was overly, highly sexual. And that's where I'm telling you, I've been through it all. I've gone deep into the darkness of my sexuality to rise out of it into the sacredness of my sexuality. So wherever you're at on your journey, there is no judgment, there is no shame. So continuing on, remember, stay connected to your breath. Nice, long, slow inhales, nice, long, slow exhales. Just feel your body slowly inflating like a balloon. And then feel your body slowly deflating like a balloon. Feel that natural expansion, retraction, expansion, retraction. In cannabis, waking up your Shakti, who is sexual by nature, and sex being a gateway to embodiment. Cannabis combined with sacred sex is a multidimensional portal to your higher self and the embodiment of your higher consciousness. Cannabis will at least attempt to drop you off at the gateway to your divinity, which is your womb or your hara. And what you do at that gateway is totally up to you. Unconscious sex and the expelling of your Shakti never opens your gateway to divinity, because your gateway to divinity has to open upwards, not downwards. You have to descend into your womb, your lower Garden of Eden, to therefore ascend into your higher Garden of Eden. Expelling your Shakti or life force in an unconscious orgasm or ejaculation is actually ejecting yourself out of all of your gardens of Edens. You are ejecting straight out of your lower Garden of Eden. So that's why retain your Shakti, retain your semen. There are many practices that I share in my sisterhood for women to remember how to retain their Shakti, because normally semen retention is kind of a man's thing. It's not talked about for women, but we as women absolutely need to remember how to retain our Shakti and channel her through our body. So once you get to that gateway, your womb, like I said, what you do at your gateway is up to you. You can either ascend or you can descend your energy. Unconscious sex and the expelling of your Shakti or your life force never opens your gateway to divinity. If anything, it jams that door shut even more. That's when eventually, if cannabis wants you to stop misusing and abusing her, which is merely a reflection of how you misuse and abuse your inner feminine energy, your Shakti, your inner healer, she will impact your libido and your sexuality in a way that will get your attention. Like, she'll shake you awake. Wake up call. Hello there. Time to get on that pathway home to your sacredness. So, dropping down this rabbit hole a little deeper, we were designed to have sex the same way that we breathe, uninhibited and unrestricted. Yet both are inhibited, restricted, localized to one part of our body, laced with shame, and provide us with just enough to get by. Just enough pleasure to get by through sex, just enough oxygen to get by through breathing, but not enough to provide cosmic bliss and multidimensional ecstasy. If your body is stuck in fight, flight, or freeze, your diaphragm is frozen, which initiates your breath. And your breath is the vehicle of your Shakti, your life force. And when your diaphragm is frozen, your breath no longer originates from deep inside of your womb or your hara. It remains localized to your chest. Rapid, shallow, localized breathing, fight, flight, freeze state. I shared in a video earlier this week, we breathe on average 15 to 19 times per minute. That is hyperventilating, although that's considered normal. Well, how do we know what's normal if it's been how many generations of ancestors since we breathed from our womb all the way throughout our life? Yes, as babies, we were womb breathers, belly breathers. But once that fight, flight, freeze state set in, we stopped breathing from here and we started breathing from here. And when we breathe from here, our breath is faster. We can't slow it down as much when we're unconscious, when we're disembodied, disconnected, disassociating. We're not aware of our breath, so our body is breathing in its current nervous system state. If your current state is fight, flight, freeze, then your breath is in that state of fight, flight, freeze. If you're relaxed, you'll be more conscious of your breath. And this applies during sex. Are you even conscious of your breath during sex? Because you carry the same sympathetic state, the same fight, flight, freeze state into your sexual experiences, with sex being localized to your womb, rapid, shallow, and restricted. So, for example, how would you feel when you are suffocating and cannot breathe in enough oxygen? Probably in full on panic mode with overwhelming anxiety and impending doom and gloom. This is the fight, flight, freeze state. So while in this state of feeling as though you're suffocating, just imagine you're suffocating. How can you even think about pleasure if you feel like you're suffocating? How can you even feel pleasure? Not just think about it, but how can you feel it now? If you feel as though you're suffocating, that feeling of suffocation and pleasure can't coexist in the same room. And this is how the molecules of your body feel in a fight, flight, or freeze state. They're in vital need of vital life force energy, your Shakti, as well as oxygen. However, both of which are restricted. You're not breathing deep enough and your life force is not flowing, because if you're checked out, you're not checked into your womb, then you're not aware of your life force, so you're not moving her through those 72,000 nadis. The other thing is those nadis flow through your fascia. If your fascia is restricted from unhealed traumas, which is where they are stored in your body, then your life force is going to hit blockages in your nadis and not be able to flow through your body, which then creates even more feelings of suffocation because you're trying to get that energy moving, but there's blockages along the highway, so it can't move. So while cannabis adjusts your sympathetic parasympathetic balance, regardless of recreational or sacred consumption of her, the difference lies in whether you receive short term or long term healing from this nervous system adjustment. And this is where I am going to end this share, and I will continue this share next week because there's a lot of good stuff in this next share, and I know I'm going to get cut off here soon. We've almost been at an hour. So, with that being said, let me just check in and see if any of you have questions, because I would love to answer any questions that you do have. This is such a juicy topic that I'm sure some of you have questions. Yolanda, thank you. Beautifully expressed. Thank you for holding space for such sacredness and the possibilities for sacred sexuality. Yes, sister, it is my absolute pleasure. The journey to sacred sexuality is a long one. It's not an easy one. I've been healing my womb, oh goodness, 15 years now. And when I began, I did a lot of the superficial healing methods and modalities, studied and did Kundalini yoga and Tantra and all these different things. And where I am at today, and that's how I can make some of the bold statements that I make and share in my book, that it's not like anything we've experienced or seen in society today, because I've dabbled in that world. I've dabbled in all sorts of different modalities, and I've read so many different books, and I read and experienced. That's why I was still looking for more. I'm like, no, that's not it. That doesn't feel like it. That no, my inner compass was saying no, no, no. And that's where, because we didn't receive a sacred rite of passage, reminding us, empowering us to remember that we are sacred. We give our power to what we view as normal in society today. So, however we view sex, from whether it's porn, romantic movies, magazines, social media, wherever, I mean, in today's age, it's crazy because the youngest addict to porn today is around 8 years old. That is sad. But that is the result of no rites of passage. It's the result of just giving our power to this wham bam think you ma'am version of sex that we call connection, intimacy, sensuality, and pleasure. So when we look at the current state of our sexuality in society today, it is in the lowest version of consciousness possible. And there's two ways, but if you desire to align to your pathway to sacred sexuality, it does require a descent from your head to your womb or your hara, which is the longest descent known to man. And it is a tough journey. You have to battle all of your inner demons, which in my book I share the 7 different demons that guard your gateway to your divinity that you have to conquer. Those demons are just your shadow aspects. They're aspects of you that you've judged, shamed, vilified, abandoned, rejected, neglected, blah, blah, blah. So they're nothing to be afraid of. But fear is evoked on this journey. Hence why the name of my book is somatophobia, fear of the body. It is the deepest, biggest, baddest fear on this planet. It's not the fear of death, it's the fear of feeling. It's the fear of what you will feel when you are fully embodied. But you see, we haven't been embodied in so long that it's outside of our comfort zone to feel what embodiment feels like, to feel what our higher self embodied feels like, to feel what our Kundalini awakening feels like. Which, a quick note there, this will be in one of the future lives. Every time we expel Shakti, our life force, we are feeding our Kunda buffer, who is Kundalini, your inner divine mother. Kunda buffer is her evil twin, the evil twin serpent that descends with your Shakti or life force and walks you straight to your death rather than awakening and surfing the waves home to your divinity up your spine. So, if any of you have any questions, please ask them now before I run out of time. And if you don't have any questions, you know where to find me. Send me a message, reach out. I am here for you to guide you home to being your inner healer, your own guru, your own shaman. I look forward to hearing from you if you do have any questions. If you don't, you know where to find me. And if you desire to meet the sacred version of cannabis that I talk about, her higher self, I'll invite you to join me in next Friday's ceremonial book reading, Friday, November 22nd. It's a free ceremony that my husband and I give to humanity to help you remember. And it's 2 hours. You will be guided into your body after the imbibing ritual with cannabis. And I will be sharing passages just like I share in this live while my amazing husband plays musical instruments, sending these passages, my words, over the tech waves with higher frequencies that are tuned to the frequencies of Mother Earth and the Divine Mother. And if you're a woman, I have a weekly womb kriya cannabis ceremony on Saturday, every Saturday except the third Saturday of the month. And your first ceremony is free. All you need is cannabis and resistance bands. And no words can do the ceremony justice. That's why it's free, so you can come and feel it. You got to feel it to truly get it, to truly experience it. And then I have a womb steam ceremony for all the women out there who desire to dearmor your womb. This womb steam ceremony will be on Sunday. It's a cannabis ceremony, and if you have psilocybin and desire to microdose, feel free to microdose. All of the information is in the link in my bio or on my website. Or if you have any questions, reach out. I don't see any questions. So, from my womb, heart, and soul to all of yours, thank you so much for joining me here today. Please send me a message if you do have a question, and it would be my highest honor to guide you home in a sacred cannabis ceremony. Have a beautiful rest of your day. I love you all.